and the pillar, literally, of any festival we're able to pull off in England is really Paul Waters. He's also an accomplished journalist and the author of many, many books. He also runs a fascinating podcast about books on the BBC. BBC podcast, is that on Radio 4 or where can we find it? Online. So he's a multifaceted writer, author, podcaster, and former journalist. His new book is called Murder in the Moonlit Square. Okay, any guesses what is Moonlit Square? Come on, it's very easy. No prizes for guessing that one. And we also have with us Anup Soni, who's watched Anup on TV. Yes, which series? Crime Patrol, right. So I would request Anup and Paul to please take their seats on the stage. In conversation with them. Yes, please. Like I've said this so many times since the morning. Come on. Yeah. It's Richa Mukherjee. Welcome, Richa. She is also a former journalist, an author, an advertising personality. And this is a stunt that Paul pulls every time. He's going to take a picture, a selfie with the audience in the background. We all need copies, Paul. All right, I'll hand over the mic to them now. Richa.
Hi, good afternoon. I can understand that post-lunch sessions aren't really easy. There's a full stomach, the lids are a bit heavy, we want to yawn and stretch a bit. But I promise you that in this afternoon lineup, there is no other session that promises you a discussion on hiding dead bodies and murderers and women with murder on their minds, much like me and some of Paul's protagonists. So I'm sure I'll have your attention and you won't be disappointed. I couldn't be in conversation with two more, befitting panelists because Paul is here with his new book with the cutest and most charming title, Murder in Moonlit Square. We've already guessed what Moonlit Square is already, so I'm not going to harp on that. Of course, we have Anup, who after his stint with online crime is, I think, well versed with criminal psychology and knows more about crime procedures and motivations of criminals than most cops. I hope there aren't any cops here. I'm sorry. It didn't need to breach our jurisdiction. But anyhow. And of course, amongst other things, I love writing crime as well. I write, cozy thrillers is the genre we both write in. So yeah, happy to discuss about some murder and mayhem. So let's get on with it. So to begin, Paul, here is that question which you must have been asked a tedious number of times ever since you started writing this book and possibly launched it, is what on earth is an Irish nun doing on the streets of Delhi? And by the way, she has a wicked sense of humor, and I think that has something to do with the author. What is an Irish nun doing in Delhi? Where on earth did you get this idea? And given the last book you wrote, which was a sort of serious book based in Ireland, where did you get this idea?
I got it from two women. One of whom is my wife, who's in the audience. She's was born in Chandigarh and grew up in Delhi, and she was saying, why don't you set something in India? And I thought, I'm not Indian, I don't know. But after we were married, I learned more about another woman, my auntie Agatha, who was an Irish nun in India. She spent her whole career, her mother said, please keep her close to home. But the convent said, she's too feisty to stay at home. We're sending her to India. And she spent her career in India, and she ended up being principal of Jesus and Mary College in Delhi. But in her first posting, she was in Pune, and after Anisha and I were married, it came to light that she had taught my wife's mother and her aunties in Pune. So when I learned more about that, I thought, okay, maybe this is a way in. Maybe it could be half Irish and half Indian, and because we hear a lot about the British in India, but the Irish have been here too, and in a small, friendly way, and so that we just came to visit, not to take over, and accept the schools. So I thought maybe that is a way in for me to write about India. I love coming here. I love the place, and Chandni Chowk is a place with so many different peoples and cultures and religions, all close together, and it's somewhere I like to visit. I like going there. I'll be there next week, and so that's where the fictional Sister Agatha came from, based, or inspired by, I should say, inspired by the real Sister Agatha. My auntie would be horrified at the portrayal. For instance, the fictional one smokes, the real one doesn't. Nuns aren't supposed to smoke, but this one does. So that's the answer.
And then there's this very, all sorts of detectives, and we know that, most people in the world don't think that women need to be detectives or are capable of being detectives, but yet you've chosen this protagonist, and there's this very uncanny sort of sidekick that she has, which is this gentleman, without giving any spoilers. That's a very unusual combination. He's a hotelier, and there's a nun, and that's a very, very interesting combination.
Well, I wanted it to be not just an outsider view, so they're both equal partners, I would say. Avatar is they're both accidental detectives. So he runs a hotel in Chandni Chowk. She's a nun. They meet at the back of his hotel accidentally. She sneaked around the back alley for a smoke, and he's come out the fire escape for a secret smoke. And then things collide literally with them, and the police, killings, anti-terror squad, mysteries, disappearances, and they have to, for their own protection and to keep the hotel open and her school, to avoid scandal, in a light-hearted way, they have to sort it out. So I thought having two equal partners means I can have people, an outsider view of India and an insider view of India, and it means I can sometimes voice some of my own opinions about Indian things. I'm scared to say them now. Like, Irish people are very particular about their tea, and I know Indian people are too, and we don't necessarily have the same opinions. But I don't want to say too much because I know you're very sensitive about that.
But they're always, Irish people are also invoking God in all their conversations. We love doing that too.
That's true, and I'm not saying Irish and Indian people are the same, but there are a lot of similarities between Irish and Punjabis. We like to drink, like to party, doesn't take much to get us going, and we both like a potato.
Fair enough. As a woman who writes comic thrillers, I've often been asked this question, isn't there a more appropriate subject? Isn't something more genteel or chick lit, which is a very, I think, reductionist way of talking about an entire body of literature when it comes to women? Wouldn't you like to write that? And I just say, you know what, if there is one section of the world population that constantly has murder on their minds, I think it's women. So thank you very much, we're very well equipped. Talking about women, even beyond fiction, Anup, I'd like to ask you, I personally believe, I love having women as antagonists and protagonists because there's a delicious complexity about the way that women are engineered to think and process, everything and strategize. Do you think, with the plethora of women criminals that you have spoken about, do you think that women make for smarter, let's just be honest, smarter, wilier, craftier criminals? What do you think, Anup?
Yes. You know why I'm saying this? Because, see, earlier we have portrayed women mainly as victims in most of the crime thrillers, if you see, even whether it's fiction or earlier, whenever you see crime was always associated with men. But I feel that the kind of episodes I have done in my show, Crime Patrol, there are episodes where you'll be, like, you can't even imagine the kind of crime they have committed. And it's not that they're smarter or anything, but it's just that it's the human psyche. I understand it's not about men or women. There are always reasons behind committing a crime. Every crime has a story. There is a story why they did it. So if you talk about criminals who are not hardcore criminals and people who are just living a normal life, and one day you come to know that they have, like for example, just to take an example, because the case is still not solved, is the Arushi Talwar case in Delhi. And when you come to know and the blame is on the parents, you get shocked. Is it possible? Can parents do this? But in my show, which I was hosting, we always taken stories where a common man who had nothing to do with crime committed a crime. And what I learned during that process, that it's not about men or women, it's about the psyche, it's about the situation. We all can be in that situation where we are angry, we are frustrated, and having an emotion like jealousy is so common. And it's absolutely fine. We all can be jealous of our, competitors. We can be greedy also. We would like to have more money in life or more luxury in life. But then there is a line. So the emotions are very common, whether it's men or women: greed, frustration, anger, jealousy. But the moment you cross that line, you commit a crime. And that's not the solution. So I always say that there might be 20,000 problems in your life, but crime is not the solution for that. So whether it's men or women, I think that's why we had the tagline called Satark Rahe, Savdhan Rahe. So keep checking on yourself all the time.
There were a lot of quippy quotes out there. I'm assuming a book is coming out very soon, somewhere. I see it.
I would like to, but I don't want to do a crime story. I would like to do the psyche behind it. See, that's what is more interesting. Like, we all love crime thrillers. I'm sure everybody sitting here in the audience, you like crime thrillers. But I'm sure they don't like crime because they like the act. It's just that the psyche, when you try to read crime stories, they make you understand about the emotion. They take you closer to the person. What happened? What went wrong? Why did you commit this crime? So I think that's the more interesting part. So if I write something, I'll write on that.
And it's very interesting that you mentioned it, that, I attended this session with a criminal psychologist, and he does, he's a forensic scientist. And he was talking about the fact that, the portions in the brain where there are pain and pleasure centers, and which would trigger you to either something thrilling or something that absolutely devastates you and scares you, are very similar, which is why we have this morbid fascination with thrillers as well, right? Thriller, horror. So there's a whole lot of human psychology even behind the genres that we consume. Coming to, I'm continuing this question with the women's streak, Paul. Coming to the book, it's not just your aunt who you took inspiration from, and it's not just Sister Agatha. Without giving out any spoilers, there's a lot of women who, in particular two, who are playing a very, very key role in the book and the entire, narrative. When you were plotting this book out, was this a gender agnostic world for you, and you just thought that these, I need characters who are appropriate conduits for delivering the story? Or did you feel that these, only the complexities with which they come, these women will be able to deliver my story the best? Was there any such conscious decision?
Interesting question. I don't know. I guess when you write something, you're revealing things about yourself. And for me, I grew up with lots of strong, clever, interesting women. My mother, my grandmother, my sisters. And so it just seems natural to have women playing important roles, just as men would be. So that doesn't seem odd to me. It just seems to reflect life and normality. And I guess, kind of picking up what you were saying, Anup, there has often been a thing in crime fiction that women are objects, I suppose. They're to be murdered or looked at dead or whatever. That's something and it's right that that should be reflected, because women have a tough time and are victims of crime. Men are too, but there's lots of gender-specific crime, and that should be reflected and respected, that reality. But I personally don't like to get into the idea of that objectifying. I suppose I'd prefer to have a woman as a killer than being killed, but
Infinitely better.
maybe that's writing a balance or something like that. But you know, obviously, we all do it. And we're all on the receiving end, and maybe there is a little twist, which is people suspect women less. They're more ready to believe them or overlook them, especially if you're an older woman. Sometimes that's like it can be very annoying to be overlooked and not noticed. But on the other hand, it can be a superpower that you can go places and not be noticed. You can hear things, you can do things, and completely as if you were invisible, and that can sometimes be useful.
Absolutely, and you can literally get away with murder. I, in fact, wrote an entire book about it, how older women can get away with murder. So, you were talking about influences, and in terms of shaping, who we are as people. There's something very interesting I read about criminal psychology. There's something called the functionalist theory, which is proposed by this gentleman called Durkheim, or Durkheim, if I'm not mistaken. And he proposes that it's not about the crime, but it's about the context of the crime and the society that shapes the criminal. I mean, the classic, definition. I mean, the classic example is Crime and Punishment, where which just shows and states that anybody sitting out here, a simple Joe, driven by those circumstances, can turn into a criminal. So, in fact, this gentleman says that sometimes crime is even necessary, and the criminal is necessary to instate, social order. There are a lot of themes that you have mentioned in your book. There's politics, there's religion, there is gender divides, there is sexual exploitation. There's a lot of serious themes there that you've navigated around. What I want to understand is, do you think that the context and all these environments, like this gentleman is talking about, has shaped the motivations of the criminal in your book? And is that, or is it just a case of the bad egg, and it just happened? And how instrumental it is it?
So that's very complicated. Well, I find that very complicated to answer. I think that yes, there are social pressures and there are contexts. I also think we each have an individual responsibility, and I know it is said that any of us could commit a crime given the circumstances. I don't know if I'm sure that's correct, because sometimes people can have an ethical core or a strength to not do that, and I guess that attracts less attention. The amount of people who deserve to be murdered and are not murdered because we show restraint. I mean, there's so many annoying people and annoying things.
Plenty.
I don't know, if you're traveling on public transport, that's all I need to say. Also then, there was a second part to that. I suppose I think that some crimes, which this might sound as if I'm contradicting myself, don't really count as crimes. So there's kind of moral or ethical crimes, and then there are legal crimes. I guess I think it is fair enough to break the law in the cause of good, and perhaps that might even include killing someone in extreme
circumstances. Are there any vigilantes in the crowd here?
Who are willing to admit it?
I think some people are going to disappear this evening, I think.
And what I would like to add, what Paul said is that, that's why there are in law also, there are segregation of punishment also, like if there is a murder case on someone, the law will first see that whether this murder was premeditated, pre-planned, or did it happen spur of the moment or heat of the moment, or maybe you trying to save yourself. So the punishment is different. So it's the psyche, it's the reasoning of the crime. But as Paul said that it should be allowed, I don't know whether it's
exactly
justified
what I was going to
not.
ask you, that given what you've seen and heard, does morality ever come into the picture as far as you're concerned? Sometimes you feel certain crimes are justified, like we were just talking about. Like, have you ever,
if we do that, then I think there is no end to it, because everyone who will commit a crime will have his own justification. So how will you measure that, whether the justification is right or wrong? Like, as Paul said, there are a lot of annoying people. My friend jokes with me whenever I drive in Bombay, and I'm cribbing, I'm screaming when I'm driving. So he said, why don't you have a machine gun in front of your car, just start shooting people, whoever is coming your way. So that psyche, if you get into the justification, it's very different. But what I'm coming to is, as I said, that there is a story behind every crime. Can I narrate one small case in short, which we did in our, and I was very affected by that case. What happened was that there was this guy who was 43-year-old, and the charge was that he killed his 80-year-old mother and his younger brother, who was around 37. Now, the reason is that he killed them, and when he confessed to the crime, he went to the police station and he said, I've killed both of them. Now, the backstory is that this guy used to work in a government office in Bombay. So his job was every day from Virar to go to Churchgate. So Virar to Churchgate, people who know about Bombay, how far it is, he used to travel every day routine in that crowded local train, come back, and he comes back and then he cooks for his mother and the brother. Brother is physically and mentally disabled, challenged. Mother is 80 and she keeps screaming something or the other, and he comes every day. There's no love in his life, there is no excitement in his life, and one day he falls in love with a woman who's a widow, and she's got two kids. She also falls in love with him, and he's happy. His life has changed. You know, like earlier from the routine of leaving in the morning, coming back home, but he's happy all the time. He's doing all these jobs. But one day the lady tells him that I can't marry you because I realize that you have too much responsibility of your mother and your brother, which will always be there. And my two sons are like growing up sons on 16, 17. And I want a partner who can take care of my children also. And I don't think you can do that. So I think we should end this here. And this is over now. He's completely devastated. He doesn't know what to do. And with that state of mind, he goes back home. He is like, his life was changed, and then it's goes back to the same thing what he was doing. And when he reaches home, so he just said that I was so upset that I killed them. But when we dramatized the story, because obviously the case was real, but when we dramatized, so we shot the scene like that. When he comes back home and he's sitting, he's still processing what has happened. That lady is not going to meet him every day, who was like some sunshine in his life. And suddenly the mother is screaming, "Arey mera khana kahan hai? Where is my food?" and all that. And the brother is also doing some puja with screaming ghanti ka sound, and he just gets up, he takes the roti belne wala chakla and all that and kills both of them. So we showed it like that. But when I read that case, because this was happened in real, and I was like, can this be a reason? Then I realized that someone in all our family, there are people who are taking care of everybody, you know. There is one man or a woman in the family. Maybe the woman has not got married because she's taking care of her younger brothers, and mother is there, father died when she was young. Or a man taking responsibility. And you go through these emotions that, yaar, maine kya kiya life mein? What did I enjoy in my life? I've been living for them. That can be the reason. So I feel it's a very, very psychological thing. And coming back to, no crime can be justified. No crime. There shouldn't be allowed. Sorry to disagree with you, Paul.
Thank you for sharing that example, because I feel seen and validated, and I'm thanking God my daughter isn't in the audience, because I've always had this dream, gosh, that, you know, I have a Hummer and it has spokes in front, and all the people who are, you like, you know, just dashing across the road and just go like mow them down. So I didn't know I would be doing this cathartically in front of this wonderful audience, but oops.
Well, can I pick up on the machine gun? I wonder, how many people here would like to have a machine gun on the front of their car? Okay, a few. Well, how many of you?
I think just to puncture their tires.
Would you be happy if everyone else had one too? Yeah, it gets complicated.
Okay, moving on before the generals and the cops and whoever's in the audience come for us. Okay, so we're talking about, we're talking about humor right now. So, you know, this genre is called cozy mysteries, and I like how we call it cozy, because, you know, there's entertainment. We manage to be entertainment and charming, but there's always dead bodies. But I do admit that, you know, it just allows for a comedy of life, a comedy of manner to be included in the way, you know, you write the story and even speak about dead bodies and, you know, very uncomfortable situations, and humor makes everything palatable. I personally think there's a very, you know, thin line between tragedy and comedy, and a lot of wise people have said that as well. When you were writing this book, was there a conscious decision to include the wonderful humor you have through the book? I mean, just the imagery, and it's very visual, by the way. I imagined everything that was happening. You're from the screen world, Anup. When you read the book, you'll just see it's all very visual. So was this a conscious decision, or is it just an extension of your narrative voice?
It's probably both, but there are so many awful things in the world. I know this is going to sound hypocritical. Why am I writing crime at all if I'm worried about all the tragedy and awfulness in the news, and everything can be quite depressing. But I suppose I wanted it to be real and about real things, but not depressing. So in real life as well, we have humor. We have dark humor to make light of daunting things. So yeah, it was a deliberate decision, and we always make in jokes, and sometimes we make jokes that we wouldn't like other people to hear. I'm sure you do it in TV. I've done it in journalism and in the military, and you talk amongst yourselves in a way that if somebody was walking past and overheard you, they might not approve, but it helps you get through. So in this, yeah, you have to have humor to lighten the load of serious things. And in cozy crime, cozy mysteries, you're not going to have the details of wounds to people's bodies and their entrails spilling out and really gory, horrible things. So you reflect that a little bit, but it's still, you can read it and it is comforting and it's fun and a happy, enjoyable read. Not everything you read, not everything in the world has to be awful. Some of it can be fun, so I wanted it to be fun.
Absolutely, and it's trickled through pretty much, every page. Anup, I wanted to talk to you about true crime. Over the last few years, there's been a massive upsurge in terms of, the number of shows that we see about, true crime documentaries and true crime shows. What do you attribute this to? Is it that, there's this morbid fascination like I was referring to earlier, or have we finally understood that, the lines between what is fictional crime and what is true crime are increasingly getting blurred, and, we just want to know what's out there? Like, what do you attribute all of this to?
I think it's the human psyche. We are always interested in what's happening in somebody else's house. Obviously, we have seen on roads also people start making video and there is an accident also happens. Nobody goes to the, somebody who's injured or anything, but people get into this shooting video. I think this is all psyche because somewhere we are interested in people's life. And that's where real crime comes, because that's becoming very popular because we want to know, oh, how did this happen? So there are cases which are high profile also. There are cases, so when we used to choose cases for our show, there are so many. Somebody told me that aapke Crime Patrol show banane se crime has not stopped. I said the purpose was not to stop crime. The purpose is not that, and it can't be. The whole purpose of the show was just to make people aware that this is happening around you. Keep yourself safeguard from that. And we always choose different genre of crime. So I feel it's just the psyche. It's just the human nature of knowing something, intriguing. You say voyeurism, it's like, peeping through your windows and looking at what is happening around you. And when you say they're mushrooming, because obviously people are liking it. So if one platform is doing it, then the other platform is also ready to do it. But I think it's just the human psyche to understand.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you this.
So you've just reminded me that the reason I got into writing fiction, crime fiction, is because I was originally going to write factual books because I was hearing stories about things happening in Ireland, and the stories that did not get into the newspapers or onto TV, the stories that were never in the history books, who really killed this person, mistakes that were made by the police, cross-border invasions that had never come to light, and all sorts of fabulous stories. But my problem was the laws of libel and defamation, and also, more realistically, somebody coming up to me and giving me a good punch in the face, or a lot worse, if I revealed certain things that had been hidden. So that's why I thought maybe it's safer for me personally and more legally safe to write fiction rather than fact, because I think sometimes, as somebody once said in a film, like we can't handle the truth, so maybe fiction is easier for us to swallow.
Absolutely. When it comes to writing, I mean, I can assure you, I mean, I'm speaking for most writers, Paul, you could be the exception. We're paupers, all of us. Yeah, nobody makes money writing. We all have day jobs. So the logical extension of anything you write these days, I have 3 books going to screen, and you're from the screen world, so I had to ask both of you this question. So I was told that, you know, if that is the only way you can make money these days. And writers have a problem with that because they don't like versions of, you know, how they've poured their, you know, hearts on paper. They don't want a bastardized, mangled version of that, you know, appearing on screen. But that seems to be the only logical progression these days. So what is, you know, both your point of view, you know, on both sides of the table of, you know, screen adaptations, necessity, painful, going with the tide? What do you feel? I mean,
see, obviously, if someone is buying the rights of a particular book and then he wants to make it into a movie, he will have the full creative freedom. Unless you write in a clause that as a writer, you will be part of the script. Sometimes producers or makers, when they buy book rights for a movie, they involve the writer. Sometimes they don't want to because they have a clear image in their mind what kind of movie they want to make out of this particular book. So it's both ways, you know. Sometimes writers are very particular that they don't want it to be changed. Maybe some changes are allowed, but they want that the essence of that book should be there. Some people are like, "Okay, yaar, I've got my money, I'm fine with it. You guys make it your movie," and it becomes popular because the writer also gets an added advantage because the sale of the book also goes up. You know, if there are people who want to read that what was in the book and what they have made out of this book. So a lot of people have this opinion that sometimes they say that, oh, the movie was very good, the book was not very good. But most of it, it's like the book was very good. They couldn't justify it in the movie. Most of the time it's like that. The book is always good. But then it's your choice. It's to each individual how he or she wants to go about, the author, you know.
Well, I would say if there's anyone from Amazon or Netflix or anyone in the audience, I'm happy to, you know, work with you whatever way you want. So I don't have personal experience of this yet, sadly, but 2 friends who do, the authors Frederick Forsyth and Peter James. So Frederick Forsyth, he loved the first Day of the Jackal movie. He hated the second Hollywood one, just called The Jackal, I think, with Bruce Willis and Richard Gere. He hated it, the worst thing ever. And then there's been a Netflix adaptation more recently, which he quite liked, but I think by then he thought, I just have to accept it. Another best-selling writer, Peter James, his books are on television and doing very well, and he likes it. And they have changed the way he writes. So before it was on TV, the character was in his head. Since it's been on TV, the television version has now taken over, and that's who he writes for. But he told me there was one book, a standalone book that he wrote that wasn't all that popular, and it was made into a film, and he was expecting great things. The film wasn't very good, and this was people's first version of it, and he was saying a taxi driver was talking to him, and when the driver found out his name, he was saying, "Oh yeah, I've seen that. That wasn't very good. You know, my wife told me we're never going to buy this guy's books," and he thought, "Oh, that backfired. That didn't work." But I think most of the time, yeah, you do get a boost, and I think you just have to, if you hand over the intellectual property to somebody to make something new, you have to accept they're going to put their own stamp on it, and I would be interested to see what they do with it. I mean, that's an exciting thing. It's like writing a play. Lots of directors might come up with different versions of it, different settings, and that's exciting. And you know, hopefully they give me some money, and hopefully people like it.
Absolutely. And incidentally, that's how Anup and I met, because I wanted.
Now
Anup
imagine,
to
I must tell you,
feature
she's
in
asking
one
this question. Richa, I must tell this audience first. time when I got in touch with Richa was I read this book she had written called Kanpur Khufia Private Limited, and I was looking for a book where I wanted to do something as an actor which is not, I've not done it, which is quirky, which is witty, and still in a thriller format. So I read her book and I really liked it. So I called her, I said, can I buy the rights of your book? And I thought that, obviously I'm not a big producer. I thought that I'll give her some token money and I'll tell her, give me 1.5 years, I'll sell your book. If I can sell it, then fine, you take whatever you quote for, you just take a token amount from me right now. And then if I don't make it, that token money is yours. So it's like a fee I'm paying to hold that book for 1.5 years. She said, I've sold my book for perpetuity to Geo. And it's been more than 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So Geo is a big brand, so they have bought it for perpetuity. So if you ask her as a writer, I was like, why did you sell it for perpetuity? You should have given it for 3 years, 4 years. They didn't even make it. So
Okay,
I'm saying
that's good advice. Thank you.
yeah. So never sell it for perpetuity.
No, and another thing is, Anup and, Paul, what's happening is, so that had a male protagonist, and yours, I mean, we both are in the same boat. Because these days, producers you have a conversation with, and firstly, they approach you, and then they're going to be like, pitch it to me. And I said, no, buddy, you approached me. Here's my book, read it. Does it have women? Yes. Yours has women as well. Protagonists is women. Women are not working in this field, in the media, in films and series right now. So pitching women and stories with women in center stage is really, really hard. I really hope that changes, because clearly they make for very good reading. So yeah, I really hope that changes. Do you see sister Agatha heading to some other country? And this is something I wanted to ask you, and this is what I was mentioning to your wife, that you deserve an Aadhaar card, I think, because he has very beautifully represented the Indianness of us, and the nuances, and how our lens on the world, sometimes judgmental, sometimes sweet, sometimes innocent. You've done it really, really well. But when you were writing, even though you had the best advice, did you have any qualms about it? Were you in two minds about not sounding authentic or having that sort of a representation, or did it come naturally to you with all the guidance that you had?
I was very concerned about it, and because I would hate for people here to read it and think it was tokenistic or not authentic or just to wince. So I think writers should be allowed to write what they want. That's a point of having an imagination. And I've interviewed writers from around the world, from Zimbabwean writers. They don't want to be limited to only writing about Zimbabwe. Indian writers shouldn't be limited to only writing about India. So I think we should have that freedom. But the thing is, you have to do it with respect and research. So I did speak to a lot of people, not just Anisha. So it's anything, you can't blame her for anything you don't like. And
the disclaimer's done.
Yeah, so and sometimes there are conflicting views. Not everyone in India is going to think the same. Not everyone in any one part of India are going to think the same. And so I have to negotiate that, and it's very complicated. Bengalis telling me, oh no, you'd never get a Bengali doing that.
I'm married to a Bengali.
No.
Bengalis are never happy with whatever version you have written of them.
And I was thinking, yeah, I don't know if that is true. I think probably they are, but okay, this is something for me to negotiate. And I can imagine everyone saying that about every group. And but you just have to find your own way through it. But yeah, I was very concerned about it. And you want to make sure there's nothing wrong or incorrect. For instance, I'll give you an example. I wrote, Sister Agatha once sees some people on a motorbike going past, and they're both wearing helmets, and she's pleased. She said, well, that's good. And if I had a daughter and she was being taken on somebody's motorbike, I'd be pleased if she was wearing a helmet. And somebody commented on this saying, oh, well, you shouldn't write that because it's against the law not to wear a helmet. And they started quoting the law to me, and I'm thinking, has this person ever been to India? I mean, of course you're supposed to wear a helmet. That doesn't mean that everyone does. So you're trying to reflect the reality, not an ideal. You want to, I suppose, you're not wanting to be completely real. Maybe a heightened version of reality, a little bit heightened, but you don't want it to be a kind of a goody two-shoes textbook, pretend version either. So I guess you're trying to get a balance there.
Perfect. And before we open up to audience questions, I've been asked peculiar things at Lit Fests. I'm going to extend the courtesy right back at them. No right answers. Whatever comes to your mind the quickest and first. You wake up in the morning. You come out and you're alone. And you come out into the hall and there's a dead body right in front of you. The police is coming in the next 10 minutes. What would you do? They'll respond first, and then we'll ask somebody from the audience, and then it's open to questions. Please.
Touch nothing.
Ooh. Criminal in the making, I tell you, Paul.
Absolutely agree, because I have done a short-term course in crime scene investigation from FSI, so I know. Don't touch anything and wait for the police.
Okay. And would anybody want to respond? Anybody? What would you do with the dead body? I like that.
Scream loudly.
Hysteria always helps. Perfect. Yes. See, these guys just know it best. Yeah, I mean, be prescient about it. Perfect. So, would anybody like to ask any questions? Yes.
Do we have a mic?
I think there's a mic coming up the middle, just coming your way, and there are two mics zeroing in on you. Oh well.
Deepa Sethi, I just want to ask you, when you plot a novel, a story, do you already decide who the murderer is going to be before you start writing it?
Not all. I suppose I do, but I could change my mind. That's my honest answer.
And change the plot as well?
Because I remember a previous book I wrote, I even gave the name of the character. It was somebody I didn't like in real life. So I gave that person's name to the character who was going to be a baddie. But he grew on me, and he had a good sense of humor, and I got to like him a bit more. So he turned out to be not as one-dimensional as I originally thought, which was a good thing. So, so far I do know where I'm going, but I'm open to changing my mind if it feels right.
Add to that dilemma, I'm a woman, so I'm constantly changing my mind even as a writer. So yeah, I do that.
So, Paul, can I, if your pen was to talk, and after you've written the 10th murder in a day, would it say, bury me or help me?
If my pen could talk, it would probably say, I've been missing you, and I wish that you were doing more writing and not being distracted. No, well, for me, it's not all about killing. That sounds a terrible thing to say. It's about, there are lots of things. It's about talking about the world and humor and people's relationships. I guess when you're depicting the stories that you tell, it's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think humor is an important part of. I would love to read fictional crime thriller where humor is an integral part.
Perhaps one more question, one last question.
Hello everyone. So recently I had the opportunity to do my internship in Forensic Science Laboratory, and I would say when I saw how the scientists were dealing with the samples and the cases and everything, it was quite surprising how their brain was like rewired. It was like very normal for them. So how do you think that being into this field changes your mind?
That's a good question. How does doing what we do change the way we think?
I'm fascinated by forensic science, and that's the reason during COVID I did this course called Crime Scene Investigation. It definitely changes your mind. You doubt everyone around you. That's the biggest change. And I'm facing that on a daily basis. I feel everybody is against me. They are plotting something.
Thank you, sir.
So I find, and I don't know if you have this too, if you're at a gathering or a dinner party, even here, I'm thinking, well, if somebody was murdered at a literary festival like this, who would it be?
There's the next plot.
Who would it be? Would you hide the body onto the stage? Or maybe in the dining room, in the center, under all the places where the food are?
Stage will be better. Under the stage, yeah.
Yeah. But also say the murder was on day one. Would there be signs of it by day 3? I don't know. What do you think?
So at KSLF, we can assure you none of that's happening the next 3 days.
It seems fine. It's very fragrant at the minute.
Yeah.
Sorry. Do you dream about your crime scenes which you write? Does it disturb your sleep?
You just feel sorry for whoever goes through your research history. Gosh, my poor father was having his poha and he just happened to walk behind me and I was researching how to cut up a dead body without spilling blood or how to poison people, and he just like, he lost his lunch right there. So yeah, the research history, I think for all of us is terrible, but other than that, I think it just makes you a little more cautious and paranoid as a person. But
for me, I think I will sleep very well if I've just had a good murder and a good crime scene. That's the recipe for a good night's sleep, and I'll be dreaming about the next one.
all in a day's work. All right, thank you for being a lovely audience, and yeah, let's hope we don't find any dead bodies lying around and we have nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It wasn't
Thank
me.
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.